This is Andrew Stotts, and we're talking about careers in finance with Okey Umeano. Okey, can you introduce yourself and maybe tell us what you do in your career in finance?
Okay, thank you, Andrew. I am Okey Umeano. Presently, I am the Chief Economist at the Securities and Exchange Commission, Nigeria. Before that, I spent quite some time at the central bank. Much of that time was spent in the reserve management function. So I managed the reserves for 6 years, thereabouts. I was also in the financial policy and regulation function. I had a risk management function at that point. Um, I was the macroprudential stress test specialist at the time. And then I joined the SEC in 2016. I've been at the SEC now for going to 4 years, just a few months short of 4 years. Yeah. And
That
that's what I've been doing. Yeah.
that sounds like a pretty impressive career. In fact, in Thailand, one
Yeah.
of our CFA board members in Thailand, when I was president, was actually working at the SEC. And so the SEC in Thailand and CFA actually signed a joint agreement of cooperation because we have similar goals of having a properly functioning equity market
Yes.
and capital markets, and
Correct.
also the idea of ethics, as I also teach ethics to young people that are studying
Yeah.
CFA,
Yeah.
saying that, the SEC has some confidence that CFA candidates are being trained to a high level of ethics. So
Yeah.
it's important. Now, this jobs that you've mentioned sound so impressive. I would like to go back to when you were younger and, when you were thinking about starting a career in finance and, the ideas that you had in the beginning and kind of how did your career path go?
Okay. I- Come to think of it, I started off with biochemistry. I my parents, my parents wanted me to be a medical doctor, and they got me off to studying biochemistry, and I was supposed to go to medical school after biochemistry. But I was always interested in finance. So right out of school, I first enrolled. I was also interested in computers. So I enrolled for a diploma in computer science, did that. And then I still wanted the business finance world. So I did an MBA. And then I loved it. So I started pursuing an accounting career. I became a member of the ACCA in 2007. And after that, towards the end of my studies, I came across the CFA. Someone talked about it. So I looked up the website, and I saw that it was something that really met what I always wanted. I did the accounting, but that wasn't. It didn't tick all the boxes. But when I saw the CFA, it was what I wanted. So I quickly went in there. And while I was doing all this, I was working at the central bank. So that made it easy. The central bank provided some support. That made it easy to write the exam. So I started writing the CFA exams 2007, qualified in 2011. That's got the charter in 2010, I think, end of 2010. And then became more serious with finance. And that's when I joined the reserve man. Okay. While I was writing the CFA, I joined the reserve management team. And I saw that everything I was studying in the CFA was relevant. We were managing about $50 billion at the time. So it was very exciting. We had portfolios that were, that covered a lot of fixed income, OECD fixed income securities. And working there made me meet a lot of people who also influenced me to, pursue that line of, pursue the career the more. And then I also found a passion in teaching. So I've been teaching CFA candidates and FRM candidates. That's financial risk manager. The exam by GAP Yeah,
Mm.
so I've been teaching them since 2008. Since 2008, I've been so immediately I passed the first level CFA. I started teaching the first level. So
Mm.
right now I am involved in CFA tuition till today. So that's what takes up my weekends: CFA tuition, FRM tuition, and sometimes ACCA tuition. So that's what takes up my weekends. So I spent just over 6 years in the reserve management function, and I really loved my job. It was nice, giving out RFPs, following up on managers. We had an internal bond portfolio, picking bonds. Well, I was never a stock person
Mm.
because everything I did was fixed income. Yeah, but I did stocks on my own, just for my own portfolio and those of family and friends, just a little thing on the side, and I found them very interesting. And then from the reserve management function, I wanted to do a little of risk management, and that's why I got into the macro prudential stress testing job I did at the central bank. So I moved to that team. We set up a stress test model, and we started trying to ensure that the banking system in Nigeria was okay.
Mm.
So that's what happened. And from there, I moved to the SEC, still in a risk management role. And my role just changed a few months ago to managing, because the risk management function is actually under the chief economist. So I just took up the role of managing that team. So over time, my career has evolved, as you can see, from science to computer science to finance. But right now I'm excited about what I do. I wake up each morning wanting to go to work. I spend all my time, doing finance stuff, both at work and personally. Yeah, I find that it gives me joy. I wake up at night and I want to put up risk models. I want to, prepare classes and, and stuff. You teach also, the excitement. When it's something you love doing, you like it.
Well,
So
it's
that's
the
what it's
best.
been for me.
It's the best feeling when you've worked hard to try to create an example, a model, a lecture,
Yeah,
and then the students
yeah,
light up, and they can understand it. I think that's one of the best feelings.
yeah, yeah,
Because I was going to
yeah.
ask
That's
you,
it.
I was going to
That's it.
ask you why. I mean, many people ask me this question: why do you commit your free time to, teaching and all that? You're successful. Why don't you just go home and relax and enjoy a good little life?
There's that joy that comes from giving of what you have. That's what I think. I'm always happy when my students qualify or get their CFA charter, and they come around. We go have dinner, and there's that joy knowing that you contributed to somebody's success. And I've seen quite a number of them come along in their careers, and that's always very good. That's
Mm,
always very good. So yeah, that's why I do it.
fantastic. Now, maybe you could give some advice kind of about for a young, let's think about a young person who's getting ready to enter the workforce, and they maybe got
Yeah.
excited about finance, maybe they're thinking about building a career in finance. What advice would you give them?
Okay. I would say study as much as possible. You see, I've seen a few young people get into the career, and they really don't keep updating their skills. Our business, the finance business, is it moves. It's very dynamic. New products come out every day. New things happen every day. You have to keep studying. You have to keep up with the pace of the profession, of the career. If not, you find that you are outdated quickly. So if you hear new products, new derivative products, new structural products are out, learn about them, know about them, prepare to use them at work, and then also be innovative also. I mean, when there are problems, think about those problems, think around those problems. Like, for instance, in the developing economies like ours, we are now thinking about how we can finance SMEs. We realize that the small and medium scale enterprises are just going to have to drive growth for us. So think around them. What structures of financing can be put there for them? Don't just accept the traditional instruments that you have met. You know, know as a young person that you can impact the profession, can impact, and then I also advise that that was a mistake I made initially. You know, when you read stuff, you are sort of bound by what you have read. You know, in the books, in the exams. Always apply those things to your own environment. You see, once you're able to apply them to solve those problems in your own environment, then you're going to rise. Everybody's going to know you, and you're going to really rise in your career. So that's my advice. But it's important also to get the certifications. It's important to get the CFA, get whatever certification you want to get, because those things signal to the world that you are tenacious, you're prepared, you have the required skills and things like that. So that would be my advice.
That's great advice. And I'm curious, you know, I mean, if we look at some careers, maybe an engineer, an architect, an accountant, is it different? I mean, do they not need, is there a reason why in the world of finance that we really have to keep on top of things that's different from if you were a scientist or if you were an engineer, if you were an accountant?
I would think that all careers need you to be on top, but ours is very quick. It changes very quickly. I think that ours is very fast in changing. Let's think 10 years back. You know, a lot of instruments have come in that were in there. I mean, even just 3 years back. I mean, in our market now in Nigeria, I live in Nigeria and I work in Nigeria. There have been a lot of changes in the past 5 years. A lot of new things have happened in the market. Just imagine one who didn't prepare for them. You know, you want that person will just find it. So I think that the pace is the same in all careers, but ours is very quick. It's very fast because there are a lot of smart people out there thinking of ways to solve problems, thinking of ways to raise financing, debt, and all that. So you have to keep up with the pace. Yeah.
If somebody asked me that question, I was just thinking, how would I answer that question? And the way I'm thinking about it, and tell me what your thoughts are, is that in some ways the other professions are guided by some sort of laws, some sort of guidelines that are unchanging, such as debits and credits.
Yeah.
Very old thing, and it's a clear thing you do not violate. When it comes to engineers or architects, it may be understanding the law of gravity and the way we build something. Sure, we're going to improve, but the point is that the foundational things do not change. But in the world of finance, the first thing is that our foundation is like a foundation made of sand, because you can learn the capital asset pricing model, but it won't work every time you use it.
Yeah. Yeah, correct. Correct. Correct.
And I tell my students oftentimes, like, if you leave my class feeling more confident, I've failed. If you leave my class feeling less confident, I have succeeded.
Yeah.
Because in the world of finance, you know, things are, we can't rely on the foundations like you can in some other things. The other thing is that,
I agree with you, Andrew.
Yeah. The other thing is, you know, like you said, things are changing so much. In fact, pretty soon, it won't be long before the US may need the skills of the Nigerian central bank in your macro prudent, you know, analysis when the whole system's falling apart in America right now. So everything changes. In fact, we're going through a lot of changes right now.
Yeah.
So let's now just talk briefly about what are some of the skills or habits that you have or that you think are important. So, you know, we've talked about the idea of improving ourselves and learn as much as you can, but what about personal habits, personal way that you manage yourself?
Yeah. Okay. One of them is that I have created a biological clock. That means that I spend a couple of hours each night, at least a couple of hours each night. So I'm usually awake at 2:30, 3 a.m. and I'm able to walk for a couple of hours before I really wake up. So what I mean by really wake up is I wake up at 3, walk till 5, and then sleep till 6 and then wake up and get ready. So I have those 2 hours. So I call them my cheat hours, you know. It's like I haven't started work, but I've already done some work. And it's constant, it's every day. I find that that's the best time to study. That's the best time to create things. That's the best time to think. So a lot of the things I have done are things that were planted at that time. So I think that's one of the biggest, my most helpful habits, I think. Yeah,
That's a
because I'm
great
able
one.
to achieve a lot. Yeah, I have been like that for maybe 15 years. I don't know. So that's one thing that works. And then the other one I think that works is there's nothing I think is impossible. I believe that everything is possible. So it's just if you ask me to do something, it might look overwhelming at first, but something in me tells me it can be done. It's just to find out how it should be done. So that's also an attitude I've built over time. I don't think anything is impossible. I think those are personal. And then I have one bad attitude. My wife says it's bad. I have this thing I have built that tells me I'm wasting time. You know, so my wife says sometimes I'm not fun to be with because I want to. I have a limit in me that tells me, oh, it's enough. You know, you can't have fun for too long. So I don't know whether that's a plus or a
Mm,
negative,
mm.
but that's me. Yeah, I have fun, but I have a limit to it. You see, after some time, something tells me that, oh, it's time to stop. Do this one else and all that. So yeah, those are the habits I've formed over time that
Fascinating,
have
fascinating.
helped a bit.
It it's
Yeah,
interesting
yeah,
because when people ask me that question, I often say that almost the same thing, and that is, I have my my early morning hours, and
yeah,
basically, I always say to people, I ask people everywhere I go, how many hours of real productive time do we have in a day? I'm talking about the type of
yeah,
time where we can be focused
yeah,
and we can create and we can be creative, not the
yeah,
type of time we may be on the phone
yeah,
or in a meeting. And the
yeah, yeah.
answer I get is between 2 and 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, probably the human limit is probably 4 hours. Like that is all you get in a day of
In a
concentrated
day, yeah,
thinking, creative time. And that
yeah.
is a physical limit of our brain. Now you can
Oh,
exceed that limit
wow.
for a couple of days or, for a month when you've got a huge product, but you're going to pay the price eventually, for that.
Yeah.
And so what that tells us is that I like to think of that as quantity. That's the quantity of work that we can do. There's a hard limit on quantity. And it doesn't matter whether you're, Elon Musk or, an average student in school, you still have this same
Yeah, yeah,
quantity limit of creative time.
of
You can be
time.
at the
Yeah,
work, you can be at work
yeah,
15 hours a day, but that means that I tell the young people, if you really want to get rich, you got to figure out how to increase your price, because it's
yeah,
price times quantity, and your quantity is limited. You got to grab that time. And that's what you're talking about, is how do you grab that time and make sure that you've got your cheat time? You're grabbing part of that
yeah,
4 hours. So
yeah,
that's something I
yeah.
think a lot about. I did my PhD. I did my PhD when I was 50. I finished it. I did it. It took me 3 years. And
Wow.
my dissertation was the final roughly 7 to 9 months. And I just knew, in order to hit my goal of getting
Okay.
to where I wanted to get, the first 3 hours of every day, which would start between 4 and 5 a.m., would be in the academic space, because you can only do so much of that.
Yes.
That just gets, like, it burns
Yeah.
your brain. But it's the same type of thing. So yeah, it's great advice for young people. All right. Well, I think
Yeah.
you've provided a great story and a lot of great, tips and insight into how you do it. So we're going to end this. Do you have any parting words for the listeners?
Um. Well, I think it's just to love what you do. As long as you love your career, you're going to be able to make the sacrifices it requires for you to do well. And then keep studying, I would say. Keep studying. Never stop. Keep
Never
learning.
stop.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you for being with us. Such a great
Thank you
insight.
very much,
Yep.
Andrew.
Yep.